1,000 days. That's enough time to transform a company, but not enough time to waste. Welcome to the 1,000 Day CEO, the podcast about decisive leadership, sustainable growth, and building a business that thrives beyond any one leader. Your host is Bill Canady. Let's make every day count.
All right, day 412. A CEO calls me on a Wednesday afternoon, and he's not calling about a problem. That's what makes this one worth telling. He had a good year. He ran the segmentation. He found his quad 4. He froze the discounts at the bottom of the book. He rebuilt the budget from 0 instead of from last year plus 5. EBITDA is up 4 points. The sponsor is pleased. We love when that happens. By every number on this page, this man is winning. And he says to me, Bill, I'm more tired now than I was on day one. Whew, man, I know that feeling. It's like you're harder you run. So I ask him a question I ask a lot. I ask him how many decisions came through him in the last week. Not big ones. We all know about those. Any of them. Anything where somebody stopped and waited for his answer before they moved again. He started counting out loud. Price exception, 2 hires, a customer escalation, whether to expedite a shipment for an account doing $60,000 a year with him. He gets to 41 and he stops and he says, and it's only Wednesday. 41 decisions in 3 days. Now, here's the part I need you to hear because everyone gets it backwards. That man is not a control freak. He's not insecure. He's not hoarding authority, and he's not bad at delegating. I know him well. The guy's actually pretty good at it, and he's genuine about it. I have watched him hand people real decision rights and mean it. He was carrying 41 decisions in 3 days because in that building, he was the only piece of architecture that worked. This is not a character problem. That's a blueprint problem. And you cannot fix a blueprint by trying harder. All right, let me start with the proof here. Power band parts. We've been talking about that all along. $310 million of revenue, 32% gross margin, 8% EBITDA. The business I've been using in our case all season. Somewhere in the second year of that hold, one person pulled a report nobody had asked for. The discount ledger. Every discount, every salesperson is granted going back years, sorted by customer segment. I tell you, it's shocking when you look at these. I suggest you go pull yours, see what you find. What came back to that was the field was running an average of discount of 14% on quad 4 book. 14, the lowest valued customers, buying the lowest value products at the best prices in the company. You heard that right. The worst getting the most. The worst business was also their cheapest business, and it'd been that way for years. There's a reason they're losing money. Freezing that book put 1 9/10 point of EBITDA on the board in a single quarter. On $310 million of revenue, that's just about $6 million. That feels good when it goes to the bottom line. Found by one person with a report in a business everybody in the room had already thought they understood. Now, here's what matters about this story. Nothing it required new information. They already had it. The discount data had been sitting in the system the entire time. What was missing, right up until it wasn't, was a person whose actual job, not their hobby, not their instinct, their job, J-O-B, was to get that number that would make the room uncomfortable and say it out loud with the CEO sitting there. Most companies don't have that person. I'd put it 9 out of 10. Here's my promise. By the end of the next half hour, you'll be able to name the 3 roles every company has to fill in order to scale, say out loud which human being in the company holds each one today, and identify the one that's empty. I'll tell you now which one it usually is so you can listen for it. It's the third one. Here's the plan. 3 roles, 1 meeting, 1 test. The 3 roles are the architecture. The meeting is how you install it. The test is how you find out in about 4 minutes whether you actually did. This is the 1,000 Day CEO. I'm Bill Canady. Let's get into it. Let's start with the problem. I want to give you a sentence first because it's everything else in this episode hangs off of it. Most businesses do not stall because of lack of effort. They stall because their leadership architecture was never designed to scale. Not effort, architecture. That's right, architecture. 87% of large companies hit a major growth stall at some point. Fewer than 1 in 10 ever fully recover. And when you go look at the causes, the overwhelming majority are controllable. They are not the market. They are not the cycle. They are decisions somebody inside the building made or failed to make. A stall is almost never a story about a team that stopped caring. It's almost always a story about a structure that ran out of capacity to carry the work and the company as it had. So let me say the thing most CEOs in this seat need to hear and almost never do. If you feel like the chief everything officer, it isn't because you're a micromanager. I mean that literally. Most of the CEOs who feel that way are the opposite of micromanagers. They're the ones who hand out authority freely, who genuinely want other people to decide, who get irritated that everything keeps coming back to them anyway. They are carrying the load because there's nothing else, no one else in the building that built this to carry it. You cannot delegate authority to an empty chair. And there's a story in our business that makes this worse. So let's take it apart. The hero CEO, the one who walks into a broken company, works 100 hours a week, personally decides everything that matters, and drags the thing to a premium exit on will alone. I've met that person. Heck, I've been that person before early in my career, and I was a version of that person, and I was proud of it, which is kind of the embarrassing part, to be honest. Here's what nobody put in that story. The hero CEO had a hard ceiling, and the ceiling is his own calendar. A business that runs on one person's judgment can only ever be as big, as fast, and as good as that person's week. That's not leadership. That's a bottleneck with a title on the door. And the single most reliable discount a buyer applies to a middle market company is owner dependency. If they can't do it without you, you're going to get paid less. The owner trap is the single most expensive problem in middle market company. Not a soft quarter, not a customer concentration, though that one costs too. Owner dependency. The business runs on one person, and a buyer can see it inside about a day and a half. They see it in the org chart. They see it in who answers the hard question in the management presentation. And they see it when the CFO looks at you before he gives a number. A business that cannot run without one person is worth less than the identical business that can. Full stop. Same EBITDA, same customers, same equipment, different price. Because the buyer isn't paying for last year's earnings, he's paying for next year's. And next year's depend on somebody who may or may not still be in that chair. That discount is the most expensive item on the whole list, and here's why. It isn't a subtraction. It's a multiplier working against you. Every point of margin you fought for in phase 2 gets marked down by it. Now, back in phase 1, I gave you a question, and I asked you to write the actual list. Here it is again, and this time it isn't a diagnostic. It's a valuation. If you were unreachable for 30 days, what breaks? Whatever is on that list is what a buyer is going to find. The only question is whether they find it after you fix it or before, which is why this work lives here, days 366 to day 500, the first half of phase 3. Not in the last 90 days when the advisors are asking who else can run this. You cannot sprint in architecture. Everybody tries. Buyers can smell it. Now the framework. 3 roles: direction, execution, and truth. I call it the rule of 3. And I want to be precise about the word roles because this trips people up. 3 roles does not mean 3 people in a $100 million business. It might as well be 2 people, where one of them wearing 2 hats honestly and on purpose. What it cannot be is 1 person, and what it cannot be is nobody. The visionary, that gives the direction. The visionary owns the answer to 2 questions. Where are we going, and what are we not doing? That's it. That's the job. In a company like yours, that's usually you. And most of the visionary's actual work is not inventing the direction, it's defending it. Once you set a goal, you will be presented with 18 good ideas that are not that goal, and the visionary's job is to say no to 17 of them while people are still watching. The visionary with no operator produces a company that changes directions every quarter and calls it agility. The operator, that's execution. The operator converts strategy into weeks, owns the plan, the calendar, the accountability, the follow through. The operator's question is always the same 2 words: buy, when. And then who? Buy, when, and who. Very, very important questions. That's the COO, a president, a general manager, sometimes a strong CFO carrying it as a second job. In some companies, it's the CEO, and that can work for a while at a certain size. An operator with no visionary produces a very efficient march in a direction nobody chose. And then finally, the prophet. They're the purveyors of truth. Now, the one you don't have. The prophet is the missing role in nearly 90% of companies. The one person empowered to act and use data to kill sacred cows in complexity. Let me tell you what that person actually does day to day, because the truth teller is the kind of phrase that sounds good and installs absolutely nothing. The prophet owns the segmented view of the business. Profit by customer, by product, by branch, by order size, the quads. And owns it is a standing artifact, not a project. Currently, every month, not resurrected once a year for the strategy offsite. We're going to look at this thing all the time. The prophet brings one unwelcome number to every monthly review, not a criticism, a number. And the prophet maintains the kill list, the products, the customers, the discounts, the reports, the processes, and yes, the standing meetings that the data says cost more than any other product. The product audits last quarter's decisions against what actually happened. Did the price increase hold? Or did the field give it back in freight? Did the customer we saved come back at margin? Or did we buy revenue with a discount and call it a win? And the prophet says the sentence nobody else in the room will say. That's $4 million of revenue and it loses money. You remember that sentence from episode 5. Somebody has to be paid to say it. Who can it be? Well, it's usually the CFO. That's the most common answer and often the right one because the CFO already has the data and already has standing in the room. It can be head of strategy. It can be whoever runs operations or commercial analytics. Occasionally, it's the business unit leader with an unusually tough spine. Rarely, and I want to be blunt here, rarely a new hire. I have watched a lot of CEOs try to import a profit, and it fails for a reason that has nothing to do with the person's talent. The prophet's power comes from being believed. Believability is local, and an outsider's first 3 findings get read as a new guy trying to make a name. And by the 4th one, the organization has already built the antibodies. Hire the analyst, appoint the prophet from inside. You'll be glad you did. Now, authority. 4 things, and if you skip one, the role doesn't work. 1, unfiltered access to the data. No permission required, no request forms. If your prophet asks to have a business unit leader for a report, the report will arrive in shape. All right. 2, a standing slot in the monthly and quarterly reviews on the agenda, in writing, every time. Not if there's time at the end, because there is never time at the end. 3, the right to put any item on the kill list, any product, customer, contract, discount, or process, and have it formally answered. Not approved. It's got to get answered. No one gets guaranteed approval. Somebody with a name says yes or no, and so that says why in that meeting. 4, a direct line to you. Whatever the org chart says about who they report to administratively, on truth, they report directly to the CEO. And that's you in this category. And then the part everybody underestimates, air cover. That's right. Take cover, incoming fire. Here's what's going to happen. The first time your prophet is right, somebody's going to be embarrassed, not humiliated, embarrassed. A leader is going to find out that in front of their peers, that a piece of their business they've been describing one way looks different in the data. That is not a risk. That is a role working exactly as designed. What you do in the next 90 seconds decides whether that role survives the rest of the year. If you soften it, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. There's context here. Let's take it offline. The role's dead. Might as well shoot it. It's dead that afternoon, and every person in the room just learned in real time that truth in this company is negotiable if you're senior enough. If you say, that's the number, what's the cause, what's the countermeasure, who owns it, and by when, those are all super important. The role is installed. That's it. That's the whole intervention. 4 seconds of being a CEO. Heavy wears the crown. One more thing, so nobody mistakes what this is. The prophet is not a critic. The prophet is the person whose job it is to be right rather than popular. Right, not popular. A critic brings a problem. A prophet brings a number, a cause, and a proposal, and then goes and does the work when the room picks one. That's a pretty handy role to have. You should also know why the prophet cannot be you. You are the visionary. The visionary is emotionally invested in the direction. You said it. You defended it. You put your name on it in a board meeting. You would not kill your own sacred cow. Nobody does. I've never seen it, including in the mirror, every time I look at myself. So 3 combinations, 3 ways it breaks. Visionary plus operator, no prophet, is confident, fast, and a lot wrong. That's the most common company in the middle market. Confident, fast, and wrong. And it will execute a bad plan beautifully for 18 months. Visionary plus profit and no operator, smart, honest, and stalled. It's terrific diagnostic and nothing ships. Somebody got to get this stuff out the door. Operator plus profit, no visionary. Effort, efficiency, and truthful in a direction nobody particularly cares about or chose. Now, you're going to have your third meeting. You're going to reorganize the company. Now, how do you install it? Back in episode 2, I gave you 4 meetings of the first 100 days. Get a goal, set the strategy, reorganize the company, take action. Meeting 3 is the reorg, and it sets in weeks 6 through 9. After the goal, after the strategy, and before the action. The order is not decoration. The order is the entire lesson. Strategy first, then structure, never structure first. Because here's the governing line from this in this meeting, and it's the one to write down. If it's not supporting the strategy, it's not staying on the org chart. This is important, which is the only usable test you have to end the strategy. Reorganize before you have one, and you're not designing anything. You're probably just cutting costs. You're moving names. The reorg without a strategy is a seeding chart. So here's the sequence. You walk into a meeting 3, carrying the goal from meeting 1 and the strategy from meeting 2. Then you take every box on the org chart, every one, and you ask it a single question. What part of the strategy does this box serve? Not, is this person a good person? Not, are they busy? Everyone's busy. We're all busy. What part of the strategy does it serve? Boxes that can't be answered get collapsed, merged, or removed. Boxes that answer the same way as another box, 2 people serving the same part of the strategy, get resolved because unclear ownership is how work goes to die. You got to know who owns this thing. And then the important one, the parts of the strategy that no boxes serve at all. Those are your vaccines. Write them down. One of them is almost always telling the truth. Here's what it looks like at the power band parse. The strategy comes out of meeting 2 was the vital few. Concentrate the company on the top segments and stop subsidizing the tail. The strategy they had was 6 direct reports organized by geography, plus a vice president of everything else. Every one of those boxes could tell you what they did. Not one of them could tell you what part of that strategy they own because the structure had been designed for a company that sold territories. And the strategy was now about to be segments. They don't always translate. They collapsed 2 roles. They recut 3 others around segments instead of geography. And they created one, a head of commercial analytics reporting to the CFO with a standing slot in the quarterly review and the right to put items on the kill list. Call it a $200,000 job. In the first year, that role produced the discount ledger, and the discount ledger produced roughly $6 million of new, fresh, shiny EBITDA in a quarter. That's the profit. That's what the role is worth, because when somebody gives it authority and then backs it in the room. One more thing on timing, and it's the episode 1 rule again. Meeting 3 belongs in the first 100 days. If you're standing on day 400 and you've never ran it, you don't get to skip it. You run it now, it's late, and at a worse rate against a team that has already decided how much of you they need to take seriously. Deferred phases get more expensive every quarter. This one compounds fast, so be careful. All right, let's look at the plan now. Structure is half the lock. The other half is depth. Let's look at the bench. Here's the test, and it's a simple one to run in the car. Every direct report should have a named developing successor, and you should be able to name all of them out loud without looking anything up. Not we've promoted within. That's not a bench. That's a preference. A bench is names. A real bench entry is 4 things in one sentence. A name, what that person is missing, what you're doing about the gap this year, and roughly when they'd be ready. Maria, missing P&L ownership, running the Southeast integration this year with a number on her sheet, ready in about 18 months. That's a bench entry right there. If you can produce that sentence for a direct report, that seat is blank and you should know it's blank. 3 blanks out of 8 is normal. That's fine. What is not fine is not knowing which 3. And understand what this is. It's a valuation item, not an HR item. In diligence, somebody's going to ask, who else could run this business or this region or this plant? There are exactly 2 possible answers, a name or a pause. A pause costs money. It costs it on lever 4, which is where it multiplies. The 3 moves you make. 3. You can run all 3 this month, and the first one takes about 4 minutes. Move number 1. Name who holds each of the 3 roles today and find the vacancy. Put it on a piece of paper, 3 lines, the direction, execution, truth. Write a human being's name to each one. Visionary, operator, and prophet. Who are they? 3 rules. It has to be a name, not a committee, not a function, not the leadership team. The same name can appear on 2 lines. It's just the way it is sometimes. And if you write your own name in all 3 lines, you've just diagnosed your phase 3 problem. You figured out what it is, and it's you. In about 40 seconds, and you can stop the exercise there. Then look at the blank. It's almost always truth. Then pick the person who is a very probably someone already in the building and is very probably your CFO, and have a 15-minute conversation with them this month. Give them the 4 authorities, the data, the standing slot, the kill list, the direct line. Say the words out loud and tell them the part they most need to hear. That when this makes somebody uncomfortable, you will be standing right next to them in the room. You've got their back. Move number 2, run the 30-day break list and assign one item permanently to a named human being. You built this list in episode 1. If you didn't, build it now. If you were unreachable for 30 days, what breaks? Take the list and don't pick the biggest item. Pick the one that happens most often. Frequency is a thing eating your week, and that's where the 41 decisions live. Assign it permanently. Permanent means 3 things. It's written down, it's announced to the leadership team, and this is the part where everyone fails. You stop answering it when it comes to you anyway, and it will. Old habits die hard. It will come to you anyway for about 3 weeks. Somebody will walk in, ask you the question you just gave away, and you will know the answer, and it will take you 9 seconds to say it. Don't say this sentence. That's Dave's call now. Go ask Dave. You do yourself and your company a big favor. What you do in the 3 weeks is the entire test. Everything else was just paperwork. So what you got going on, those 3 weeks, going to make a big difference. The third move, write the successor's name next to each direct report and confront the blanks. Direct reports down the left side of a page, successor names down the right, from memory, no HR file, no talent review deck. Whatever you can produce in 5 minutes is what you actually have. If you don't have it, you can't get it out in 15. Then look at the blanks and pick the 2 that scare you the most. Usually the 2 seats where resignation would cost you a quarter. Put a development plan and a date against those 2 this quarter. 2, not 8. Now, what does this look like when it's working and when it's theater? When it's working, there's open space in your calendar and it feels wrong at first. Somebody other than you kills something. The unwelcome number shows up in the monthly review without you asking for it. And when a buyer eventually asks a hard operational question in a management presentation, you don't answer it. Somebody else does. And your job is to sit still and let them do their job. When it's the org chart gets redrawn and nothing else changed. Same decision, same route, new boxes, new title. A very nice slide that you probably gave some people raises on. Well, they're not doing anything different. 1, most businesses don't stall because of lack of effort. They stall because the leadership architecture was never designed to scale. 3 roles: direction, execution, and truth. Visionary, operator, and prophet. And if you feel like a chief of everything officer, you're not a micromanager. You're the only structure in the building, and that's a blueprint problem, not a character flaw. So let's get it figured out. Second, the vacancy is the prophet. 9 out of 10 this is generally how it is. It's usually your CFO. It's really a new hire, and it needs 4 things: the data, a standing slot, the kill list, and a direct line to you, the boss, the CEO, guy in charge. The role lives or dies on air cover. The first time your prophet is right and somebody embarrassed, what will you say in the next 90 seconds? Either installs the role or buries it. If it's your CFO, it's going to be bad if they quit. 3, owner dependency is the most expensive problem in middle market company because it works on the multiple, and the multiple multiplies everything else you did. 4 levels of enterprise value, and the 4th one prices the other 3. Which brings me back to the line I use all season. Luck is the residual of design. The luckiest thing that can happen to you in this hold is a buyer who looks at your company and decides it isn't risky. That's not luck. That's an org chart somebody built on purpose and a schedule starting around day 366 with 3 roles filled and a bench behind them. Here's 1 sentence variation of this whole episode, and I'd write it on something you look at. Your job in phase 2 is to become the least necessary person in the building on purpose. That's right. Your job is to put yourself out of a job. That's how you know you're doing it right. Not the least valuable, not the least anything, the least necessary. There's a very large difference, and about a turn and a half of a multiple is sitting on it. So go make yourself unnecessary. Doesn't mean you're not valuable. Next week, the rhythm. You got the architecture. Now I'll give you the thing that makes it run without you standing over it. The weekly scoreboard, the monthly business review, the quarterly reset, what belongs in each one, the tool rules that make a monthly review worth having, and the 10-second test for sorting any problem into the right meeting. The whole system costs about a half day of your week, which is less than what you're spending right now on interruptions. And I'll give you the 2 ways it dies. The meetings multiply until nobody can breathe, or the meetings happen right on schedule and nothing ever gets decided. Crazy. If you want the Rule of Threes worksheet from today and the 3 lines and all these other tools, you can find them at the 8020institute.com. And you can always sign up for the classes. You can do them DIY. You can also get help and coaching and all the other things. Go in there and check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. I'm Bill Canady. Now, go do the work.
You've been listening to the 1000 Day CEO with Bill Canady. Follow the show for more decisive leadership, sustainable growth, and strategies that build enduring businesses. Until next time, make every day count.